Hey there and welcome back to Tech Industry Insider. I'm Scott Steinberg, technology analyst, here as always to answer all your tech questions as they relate to online, social media, apps, anything out of the headlines. We got it covered. This is my special co-host, Frank. He is absolutely adorable. I gotta tell you, this guy's like a Siamese cat. I cannot resist stroking him. It's kind of sad. But he's here. Thought we'd talk a little bit about internet service providers and how they're now policing music, movie, and video game piracy. Kind of an odd thing. And the reason that we bring it up is, of course, because of a viewer question. So we always welcome them. Now, this week, the question comes from Whodafac. Thank you very much, sir or ma'am. It's internet service providers policing pirates. What is Hollywood smoking? And does anyone really think that this will work? Yeah, it's kind of an interesting dilemma. And it's actually odd because they've moved to this new 6-strike system. So what's happened, as you may have heard, is that internet service providers, the guys who give you your high-speed internet, and gals as well, Comcast, Cablevision, Time Warner, they're now in charge of regulating music and movie piracy, sending warnings. You can have 6 strikes, twice as much as you get in most cases, or 6 times as much if you happen to be married like me and you're dealing with your spouse. But the reality is, I'm not sure that it's going to be an effective system, probably good for pirates. So what happens is internet service providers, they can send you warnings, and these can escalate in severity. And if you don't acknowledge them, if you ignore them, they can go on up from a slap on the wrist all the way on up to possibly slowing the speed of your internet service connection. Not that anyone would probably notice these days, given service in general. Or they can actually block access to the internet entirely, where you go to a landing page, you have to call them to reinstate your service. But it's hard to see how the system can work, kind of an honor system of sorts, because what happens is the trade bodies have to go to the ISPs with evidence of wrongdoing, then the ISPs have to enforce it. And for ISPs, I don't see what the incentive is to enforce it, because if they go to you and they piss you off, you can always go to another cable provider, right? And they don't want you to be living in fear. They worry about customers leaving and signing up for other services. And on top of it, they don't want to be sued. So they don't want to shut off your service and find out, oops, we made a boo-boo. And on top of it, trade groups, you know, they got to amass evidence. That takes time. That takes energy. ISPs also have to have the bandwidth to do it as well. No pun intended. And if you're a pirate, it's hard to say why, if you would get a warning, why you wouldn't change up your habits. Why wouldn't you go to a friend's house, download from there? If I'm grabbing music, movies, video games, why wouldn't I decide, you know, instead of doing it from peer-to-peer sites or FTP sites, do it en masse overnight? Why wouldn't I just mix it up and do it at different times during the day, lower volumes of activity so they wouldn't come bust me? And at the end of the day, it all smacks of, you know, publicity stunt, to be honest with you. I'm not quite sure why anybody would be more punished by this system, especially since the old system was you would get sued, right? And attorneys would come to you and say, hey, you've been downloading music, movies, video games, whatever, stop it, otherwise you're going to court. And no matter what, you would either be humiliated or you would have to settle. It would cost you money, it would cost you time, it would cost you anxiety. And now essentially what you're talking about is what seems to be a slap on the wrist. So probably a good thing in general if you happen to be a music, movie, or video game pirate. Not great for the industry, but for the average American on the street, actually a positive, because we don't need to be so litigious. There's no reason that a single mother of a 12-year-old needs to be getting hit with lawsuits, having to settle for 5-figure sums. It's ridiculous. So thanks for the question. We appreciate it as always. Feel free to write in with more. Our website is www.toptechexpert.com. You can hit us up on Facebook or Twitter as well. We'll be here to answer all your questions next week too. Tech Industry Insider, we'll see you soon.